Hello, MCU fans. Today we're going to break down the big reveals from Across the Spider-Verse, and what a movie it is. Oh my goodness, unbelievable movie. Now, there will obviously be lots of spoilers in this video, so if you haven't seen it yet, go see it, right? What are you waiting for? It's incredible. But assuming you've seen the movie, then let's dive right in and look at the big reveals from Across the Spider-Verse. So the first thing I'm going to do is a very high-level timeline for Into and Across the Spider-Verse and where they relate to the overall Sony movies. I promise I'm going to do a follow-on video that goes into great detail on all the Sony movies and why they're placed where they are. But there's so much to talk about for this video that I'm just going to go high level. So we're going to look at Into the Spider-Verse, and you might remember there's a test that he took in that he intentionally tried to fail, Miles, and gets a 0. Well, not only that, but he makes up December 2nd of 2018. However, it's pretty clear he meant December of 2018, and of course he's just being silly with December, because we're going to see both December and 2018 repeating themselves later in the movie, because on Peter Parker's grave that dies in Into the Spider-Verse, we see he died in 2018. And there's also a poster later in the movie, December 17th. So we get both December and 2018 clearly reinforced in this movie, meaning that's when it's taking place. All right? How about Across the Spider-Verse? Well, we don't get a lot. And unfortunately, I don't have a screenshot with the dialogue closed caption to prove this, but they do mention the movie takes place 1 year and 4 months later. And this tweet reinforces that because one of the writers is saying, hey, it's not a year, it's a year and 4 months. So he's being very specific. So therefore, the movie takes place in April of 2020. Okay, pretty easy, right? Nail both of those. And so you can see here's the overall timeline, which again, I'm going to do a follow-on video where I go through every one of these movies and do a month breakdown for each. But notice we've got Tobey's and then Andrew's movies, the two Spider-Verse movies, the Venom and Morbius movies, and of course, No Way Home when they all get pulled into No Way Home. So we'll talk a lot more about this, but this at least gives you an idea of where the Across and the Into Spider-Verse movies fit in relation to Venom and the Morbius movies. Okay. There is one more thing we need to talk about, though. In Across the Spider-Verse, they unfortunately contradict themselves and give us four July 11th of 2023 dates on this security monitor. Now, a lot of times you can discount dates that show up on a computer or a phone or on a security monitor like this, because sometimes it's just the date the movie was being filmed, and it's an accident. They didn't even mean for it to be seen. But this is animated. They intentionally put this date in 4 times. So we can't just throw this out and ignore it. So what does it mean? Because remember I said April of 2020 is when the movie should be based on Into the Spider-Verse, but now they've moved it, almost 3.5 years into the future. Well, one joke I heard somebody say is Sony trying to find a place for those extra 4 years when they messed up in Spider-Man Homecoming? Remember the infamous 8 years later should really be 4 years later. Well, they got 4 years to spare, so why not tack those on to the Spider-Verse movies? But actually, I think there's another reason they're doing it. One of the weird things is because there's a 5-year gap between when Into and Across the Spider-Verse came out, but the movies only advance a year and 4 months, we're therefore left with, Across the Spider-Verse being in 2020. So literally 3 years back from today. I'm wondering if they're trying to retcon the movies forward. If they're saying, no, really, Across the Spider-Verse is July of 2023, and therefore Into the Spider-Verse would be like March of 2021, sorry. So they're just kind of moving it all forward. I'm okay if they did that, but I think they need to be more clear rather than just sliding a date in there. Are they advancing the timeline to get it more into present day, or are they, keeping it where it was originally? I don't know right now, so I'm going to keep it what the movie is telling us. Well, it's really telling us 2 things, right? But I really think it's more consistent for now to stick with 2018 and 2020. Let me know what you think. Why do you think they stuck that July date in there? Were they trying to imply it's now advancing things more into present day or not? So let me know what you think. All right. We also need to address up front this very confusing quote from one of the directors, Powers. Okay, so he spoke to Digital Spy, and he said the new movie is not connected to the MCU, and that the joke, referring to the Doctor Strange and the nerd from 1999, that is a tongue-in-cheek way of acknowledging the history of the character. He goes on to say the world of Miles Morales and the Spider-Verse is not tied into the Marvel Cinematic Universe or anything like that. But this is a Lord and Miller film. We like to have a little bit of fun. We like to be a little meta and to acknowledge the world in which we are creating these stories. That's the best way to explain it. He then makes it really clear. This isn't something where we did anything in conjunction with Marvel. Miles' universe, trust me, there's plenty to work with. That gag is one of many, and my favorite gag is one that people don't know about yet, but I think when they see it, they're going to be pretty stunned. I'm guessing that's the Venom gag, which of course then they ruined in the trailers too, but nonetheless. It's a serious film, but it's also a film with a lot of fun in it. Okay, what do we do with this, right? What do we do with this? I mean, there's no way he's right. I mean, they're obviously connected to the MCU. There are so many, which we'll cover in this video, so many references to the MCU. However, the director is being crystal clear. He's saying it's not connected. These are meta references. We didn't work with Marvel, and it's not part of the MCU. I'm guessing what he was really trying to do was to lower the expectations that there's going to be all these crossovers. A lot of people are saying, oh, I wonder if Tom Holland will show up. I wonder if Andrew and Toby will show up. And by the way, Andrew and Toby kind of did, but not really. It wasn't new footage. So I think people were discounting the value the movie has in and of itself. And this was him almost offensively saying, this is a Lord and Miller film. We don't need ties to the MCU. So don't expect that. I just wish he hadn't said it this clearly, that it's not tied. I wish he would have just said, there's no crossovers, guys. Just enjoy the movie. Anyway, I'm just throwing that out there because I firmly believe it is tied to the MCU. But I also believe we need some clarification from Mr. Powers because this is a really confusing quote. All right, moving on. So I'm going to break this into character stories because the plot is so deep and so thick that I think you almost have to pull everything together or you miss some of the bigger stuff. So, because I got confused the first time I watched it until I really started putting everything together. So let's talk about Miles first. I love the fact that they reveal that the spider that bit Miles in the first movie was not from his universe. I mean, we should have known, right? It was glitching. But I just didn't think about it, of the ramifications of that. But it was pulled into our universe by the Kingpin and his experiments with the Collider. And we really learned that it's from Earth 42. I mean, they had the 42 everywhere, but it didn't dawn on me again that this was a hint that this is from Earth 42. So that's really wild. That means that Miles was bit by a spider from another universe. And of course, Miguel uses that against him. Spider-Man 2099 uses that against him, saying, you're an accident. You're an anomaly. You shouldn't be here. But that kind of bothered me because if you think about it, should any of the Spider-Men be there? I mean, isn't it just a colossal anomaly that a radioactive spider randomly bites them and they don't die and instead have spider powers? So I don't like that Miguel treats Miles like he's an accident. That's not true. But it works. It works for the story to let you really understand why Miles is getting kind of ticked by the end, right? That everybody's telling him that's what his story is. And he's like, I'm going to write my own story. I love that. But we also learn, not only should the spider not have bit Miles, at least the Miles in the Spider-Verse movie, but it should have bit the Miles from Earth 42. I mean, this is really clearly saying that guy on the left with the braided hair, that's the Miles from Earth 42 that would have got bit, but he didn't because the spider was sucked into Miles from 1610's universe. Because look, this is Earth 42's Miles. Notice the braided hair. There's no way that's by accident. So basically, because he wasn't bit by the spider, his life and his entire universe was changed. He didn't have a good role model because he didn't turn into Spider-Man, and he chose a different life because it turned out that he became the Prowler, as we learn. And that's a cool outfit, by the way. Love his outfit. Really menacing. But I say he didn't have a good role model because his dad is the one that died in this universe. And instead, he followed his Uncle Aaron, instead of his dad, into more of a life of crime. Wild. So all of this happened because the spider was pulled from the wrong universe. And this, what I love about this is it really ties across the Spider-Verse into the story from Into the Spider-Verse. It ties them together perfectly. Absolutely love it. They also make it look like the world is really dark and dreary in Earth 42 when Miles goes to visit, which just kind of shows how everything changed because of that spider. But again, it's not Miles' fault. It's the Kingpin's fault, if it's anybody's fault. It's the Spot's fault, as we'll learn, because he worked for Alchemex. It's not Miles' fault. It's just so weird. Everybody blames him. So, yeah, I can see why he was ticked by the end of the movie. They also then, Miguel blames Miles for Spider-Man of his universe getting killed because he says, hey, if you hadn't been there, Spider-Man would have succeeded. But because he had to deal with you being there and not knowing what you're doing, because he wasn't very good at being Spider-Man yet, obviously, Miles wasn't, then Miles' Spider-Man died. That is not Miles' fault. It's the Kingpin's fault. It's Spot's fault. Anyway, just wild how poor Miles gets blamed for all of this. So that really builds a good storyline, which will, of course, be resolved in the third movie. But very, very well done. Incredible, incredible writing. Then we also learn, as I alluded to, the Spot worked at Alchemex with one of my favorite callbacks. Oh my gosh, the bagel dude that gets hit with the bagel. That's the Spot. That is so cool. So well done. Just amazing. You wondered, were they thinking this through when they did the first movie? I mean, it's been 5 years between the first one and the second one. That is impressive writing if they actually put this gag in there, knowing he was going to become the Spot. Wow. But anyway, yeah, we learned the Spot worked at Alchemex, and again, he was responsible for bringing the spider into this world. But no, he still blames Miles for becoming the Spot and losing his job, and now he has to turn to a life of crime. Everybody blames Miles for everything. Unbelievable. But in the comics, he was pretty silly as well, as you can see. But he only starts out silly. He really becomes pretty menacing because it's clear that he's learned about the multiverse. Is in his apartment, we see there's the deceased spider, number 42, and other universes spiders, and he's learning about the multiverse. So when he starts to grow in power and realizes he can jump to different realities, oh man, he becomes really menacing then. So and he's the main antagonist of the movie. I mean, Miguel is an antagonist as well, I feel, but clearly Spot is the main villain and is really going to be powerful by the third movie. Then also, it's really interesting because at one point when Miles gets a vision of the Spot's plans, when they kind of he gets intuition of what may be happening. He sees the death of his dad, the death of the girlfriend of Spider-Man India's dad, and I love how they're rescuing obviously a kid, trying to save a kid. I love that the kid's only thing that has color is the red shirt. That's really cool. But so Miles is now really worried because he knows that Spot basically wants to grow to immense power, and along the way, as a result of what the Spot does, people are going to die. Captains are going to die. So we'll talk more about why that's important. But yeah, very, very cool that Miles gets this vision and really sets up again the third movie. All right, so let's talk about Gwen. I would argue this movie is as much Gwen's movie as it is Miles' movie, maybe even more so. I would argue that the entire movie is framed around Gwen's journey because Miles' journey has only begun. You know, Miles is being told you're an accident, you're an anomaly, you shouldn't exist, blah 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 blah. That gets resolved in the next movie. Gwen, on the other hand, her character arc is amazing. So we see her grow and learn and, in fact, become really pivotal to the next movie. So this beginning, which I've heard some people complain, there was a lot of Gwen at the beginning, it's so meaningful. When you think about it after the movie ends and you go, I see why that was all in there. So anyway, Gwen is fantastic in this movie. And I have to go give some credit to Haley Steinfeld as well. Oh, my goodness. The combination of the two. I mean, the Gwen that is represented in the movie is amazing, and Haley's work, voice acting, is amazing. I wonder if they will ultimately have her play a live-action Gwen. I'd be down for that. It'd be kind of weird since she also plays Kate Bishop, but oh my goodness, she is just so incredible. I already loved Gwen from the first movie. She's just a revelation in this movie. So we learned a lot about her backstory. We got some of it from the first movie. It was pretty quick, wasn't real in depth. We learned a lot about her world's Peter Parker and his death and how it affected her. Also, we learn about her relationship, or lack thereof, with her dad, because her dad is trying to track down the killer of Peter Parker, not realizing that, and feeling it was Spider-Gwen that killed him, not realizing, of course, Spider-Gwen is his daughter. So, yeesh, wow. So it leads to this conflict throughout the whole movie, or at least her scenes with her dad, where they're against each other until she reveals her identity to him. And he realizes, oh my gosh, I can't go after you anymore. And he steps down from being a captain, and they ultimately have a little, time back together again and reunite together. But it's going to be very important, and we'll get to it, on why her father no longer being a captain, why that's going to be super, super relevant. But let's talk also about her friendship with Miles. Love it. Just fantastic. These two have got to get together officially in the third movie. I mean, they are together. You can tell they really like each other. But man, they got to get together. Just one of the cutest couples out there. Their relationship has been so well developed slowly and over the two movies. And I'm sure by the third movie, it's going to be even more. However, there are some things to resolve first, because Gwen was very dishonest with Miles in this movie. I mean, the whole reason she even came to his universe wasn't so much to visit him. It was to track down the Spot. Miguel clearly had her go to figure out, hey, what is going on with this dude? So I appreciate that Miguel at least had the Spot on his radar. But, back to the earlier point of where he just keeps blaming Miles for everything. Why aren't you blaming the Spot? Why aren't you tracking the dude down? So it's good to see that he is slowly tracking down the Spot. But anyway, Gwen is very dishonest with Miles, and it really hurts him. So when the next movie picks up, they got to get together again, and it's going to take some explaining on Gwen's part, I think. But I do love the fact that by the end of the movie, and this is why I say the movie is really framed around Gwen's journey of realizing, I can't trust everything Miguel says. I can't just do everything he says is going to happen, and this must happen, and this must happen. No. I'm gonna fight that. I'm gonna trust Miles, and she reunites the team from the first movie, from Into the Spider-Verse, as well as some of our favorite characters from the second movie. And we'll talk more about Spider-Man India being with her. That is really important. But yeah, if you think back to how the movie ends and what Gwen says, she's really kind of narrating the entire movie. So her journey, her arc has completed. She has saved her dad, inadvertently saved him by him not being a captain, and realizing that, you don't have to just be fated for things to happen. You can control your own destiny, and that's really cool. So yeah, I think it's more Gwen's movie than Miles' movie, in a way. All right, we brought him up a couple times. We got to talk about Spider-Man 2099 and Miguel. I'm curious, if you're a Spider-Man 2099 fan, a Miguel fan, how did you feel about this movie? I mean, I've always liked him in the comics. He wasn't my favorite Spider-Man, but I liked him. But whoa, man, he was something else in this movie. So let me know in the comments if you liked his portrayal or not, because he really seemed to know everything. He was pretty. It's kind of like the TVA. I've heard some analogies to he and the Spider Force are kind of like, or Spider Society are kind of like the TVA. I don't know. I guess I really think he's even more dogmatic and so condescending. But yeah, he just basically blames Miles for everything. But he has a reason. Because he believes that the multiverse is not going to be stable unless certain things happen. So let's talk first about this visual. Oh my goodness. Again, you look back at that quote I mentioned by one of the directors where he's like, oh, it's not tied to the MCU. Really? It's not? Come on, dude. Come on. This is totally the branching timelines from Loki. But what I really enjoy about this is not only do they have the tie to the MCU, but then he says it's overlaid with the web of life and destiny. Notice that builds around the timelines to show how the Spider verse and the Spider-Men and Spider-Women and Spider animals, as we'll see, how they are tied together in this web of life and destiny. Now, this is a concept that came from the comics, so it's nothing new, but it's the first time we're really seeing it in the movies. I think it's going to get expounded upon even more in Madam Web's movie, which Sony's going to be releasing. But he talks about the fact that there are canon events in each spider creature's lives, and that these canon events must happen. They absolutely have to happen. And One thing I wish they would explain a little bit more is I would like to know why he is so convinced. I mean, they alluded to he had some experiences in his own universe where he went off searching for his family in other universes and caused all kinds of problems. But what is figuring out all this information? It's not just figuring out things that have happened. It's predicting the future. It's literally predicting things that haven't even occurred yet. How is it doing that? I would love to know what his algorithm is, but clearly the movie is having you question his algorithm, and is it really accurate? But nonetheless, he says there are several canon events. One of them is losing an Uncle Ben, and here we get the references to, obviously, the Tobey Spider-Man movies. Everyone has to have an Uncle Ben die. And we see several Uncle Bens or Uncle Ben-like deaths. Okay, so that's one. That makes sense. That is a key event in each Spider-Man's life, sure. Another one is getting bitten by the spider. I mean, duh, right? You got to get bit by the spider to become a spider person. Another one, this is interesting, seems to be implying an encounter with a symbiote. So does that mean every spider being, every spider person, spider animal has to have a venom? I mean, it could. In a way, it almost feels like it's Sony's way of going, no, really, venom's important. But whatever, now that's fine. I don't know if he's saying this has to be a canon event or not, but it sure seemed like has to happen. And then there's this idea of losing a captain, which I thought was clever, but also a little strange. I mean, why does it have to be someone who's a captain? But nonetheless, he was basically saying, that you have to lose someone, not just a mentor figure like an Uncle Ben, but you have to have somebody else that's important in the life of those around you. And this is where we get the Big Andrew cameo, which again, it's not new footage. It's footage from his own movies, but still, it's clearly tying together that, yes, Andrew's movies and Tobey's movies, they're all part of this web of life and the MCU, because that's the same image, again, that we saw from Loki. So I don't know what the director was talking about, because this is clearly all tied together. Now, we see in the movie that maybe Miguel is right, because Spider-Man India's captain, which is the father of his girlfriend, is saved by Miles. And Miles wasn't supposed to do that. They even try to stop him. Literally, Gwen tries to hold him back. Wow. Very dark, very dark. But I guess Miguel, again, had known this was going to happen by his predictions that could tell the future, and this guy was supposed to die. Well, I will say this much. Miguel was right in that we see the world start to be destroyed. Now, the question is, what was causing this? I mean, they don't really go into it. I mean, it's possible this was because of the spot. That would be really interesting, because they don't tell us the reason why this starts to be destroyed. But I really want to know, and hopefully in the third movie they'll go into that. What is causing this? Why does it have to happen? But more importantly, did it actually destroy the world or not? Because we know from What If that there are absolute points in time. And it was a fantastic episode with Doctor Strange. We're probably one of the best of What If. If you don't watch any What If episodes, watch this one. So good. But when Doctor Strange alters an absolute point in time, the universe is toast. I mean, it is toast. It's gone. And we kind of see that happening here, right? It's the same look and feel. However, what's interesting in Across the Spider-Verse is Miguel sends in a team to assess the damage, to try to contain it. I don't know what that means. And it's really pivotal to the plot. I really wish they would have answered this. So maybe that's why they didn't tell us. But okay, let's unpack this for a second. The fact that Miguel, quote unquote, sent in a team implies that you can prevent a canon event and then stop the damage, that the world doesn't have to be destroyed. So I would argue that is not like an absolute point in time. An absolute point in time is something that if you alter it, you're done. There isn't a way to save it. But seemingly canon events can be contained? I don't know. Really, really important though. And the reason earlier I said the appearance of Spider-Man India with Gwen's team, basically Gwen's free will team, if you want to call it that, we are not bound by destiny in these canon events, we believe that you have free will. Well, Spider-Man in India would have seen firsthand that his world was either destroyed or not. So I am guessing his world was not destroyed. And I'm guessing that they find out that maybe that was because of the spot more than anything else. Because otherwise, why would Spider-Man India be on the free will team? He'd be like, no, dude, my entire universe was destroyed. We can't do this. We have to let certain individuals die. Because if we don't let the one die, everybody dies. So yeah, I think it's pretty sneaky that they don't tell us the result of his world. Let me know what you think in the comments. What do you think happened to Spider-Man India's world? What do you think caused it to begin to be destroyed? My guess is it was more because of the spot and not because of canon events, and that Miguel is wrong and that you can prevent a canon event from happening. So we'll see. We'll see. All right. Here's the key, though. Miles has lost someone close to him, his Uncle Aaron. That's like his Uncle Ben. However, he hasn't, quote unquote, lost a captain yet, which again, I think that's kind of weird that that the person has to be a captain, but nonetheless, that's fine. That's what they're saying are the rules. And so that's why Miles is really worried that his dad is going to die. And they kind of made us think he was going to die in this movie. I'm glad he didn't, but man, what are your guesses? Do you think he's going to die in the third movie? I would argue no. I would argue there's no way he's going to die because it defeats the whole purpose of all of this. I mean, yes, it would be tragic and you need some tragedy and those type of things, but the real question in this movie and all these movies is, do we have free will? Can we write our own story, or is our story written for us? And the very fact that Miles says, I'm going to write my own story, to then have his dad die in the third movie would be very self-defeating, it feels. But maybe it'll happen. Let me know in the comments. What do you think will happen? I'll tell you, though, one thing that really bothered me in the movie was that the whole Spider Society, all of them, were like drinking the Kool-Aid. Isn't that weird? Every single one of them bought into what Miguel was saying. Oh, yeah, people have to die. That's canon events. We know it. I mean, even Spectacular Spider-Man gives a little lecture to Miles. I don't know about. I mean, Gwen drank the Kool-Aid, right, until the very end, until she realized, wait, no, my dad didn't die because he decided not to be a captain. I prevented a canon event, right? That's why she believes there's free will. But she didn't at first. Peter B. Parker even bought into this. I really struggle because I think one of the things that makes a Spider-Man is the belief that there's always got to be a way. I mean, think of Tom Holland in No Way Home. He was willing to risk everything to save those villains. And by the way, that might be why Miguel is so mad at Tom Holland. If you think about it. Remember, he said, don't even start with me on that nerd in 1999. Maybe what he was really saying was that guy tried to save people that were meant to die. So anyway, I just think Tom Holland is a great example, and Miles is a great example of what makes a Spider-Man, and I'm really surprised. All these guys pointing, every one of you, I'm pointing at you guys, don't drink the Kool-Aid. This is why dictators get into power. Because the person with the loudest voice wins, and everybody goes, okay, I'll do what he says. Not good. I really even felt that they were all just jaded to the point of almost being depressing. I mean, I loved the joke with the spider therapist where he's like, oh yeah, let me guess, your uncle died. It was very funny and I laughed. But if you think about it, that is reflective of the whole spider society. Oh, it's just what happens. Get over it. Your uncle died. They're accepting these things have to happen, that fate controls their lives, versus Miles is saying, no, it doesn't work that way. So just very interesting. And especially when you consider that there's a double Easter egg here, that the diploma for the therapist, it says Ditko University, obviously Steve Ditko reference, but notice it's Ezekiel Sims. To make the therapist be the oldest and wisest of the spider beings is weird, because it's basically saying, hey, even this guy is so jaded by now that he's like, whatever. Everybody has an uncle die. Get over it. So I just really think there's a message here, a huge message of don't drink the Kool-Aid. Think for yourself. Don't just trust what the loudest person in the room is saying. And boy, oh boy, Miguel is the loudest person in the room. Let's be honest. All right. So where does this movie leave us off? Well, the Spot's continuing to grow in power, and something's got to be done to stop him. And obviously, ultimately, it's going to have to be that Spider team as well as Miles getting back together. Speaking of, there's the Spider team. So they're got to go find Miles. They have no idea where he is. But I would argue that each of these individuals has accepted the fact that there is free will and these canon events don't have to happen and we don't just have to let someone die, that does not work. And again, notice Spider-Man India, that is fascinating to me that he's up there. So we'll see where this all ends up. I'm not surprised Spider-Punk has joined them, though, because I think Spider-Punk didn't buy into Miguel from the start. I mean, you watched him putting together all the little pieces of the device to ultimately give to Gwen so that she could put this team together. So, yeah, very cool. But so this is the free will team, if you will. They got to find Miles. And, of course, Miles has got to deal with the mess in Earth 42. He's got to get over the fact that it's not his fault, because it's not, and get himself free. And then I do love the fact, too, one last little Easter egg is he's tied, obviously, to a punching bag. And that's, of course, what he did to Peter B. Parker in the first movie. So that's kind of fun. But, yeah, they got to find Miles, first of all, and then they got to find the spot and then, hopefully prevent the death of his dad and help turn around the Miles from Earth 42 whose life has gone disastrously bad. And that kind of shows, too, the two paths. The Earth 42 Miles went the bad path, and the 1610 Miles hopefully is going to go the good path. All right, and bring the Miles from 42 around. Okay, let's start talking about some Easter eggs then. So I love the fact that Genki is playing the PS4 Spider-Man. That's really cool. That was a fun little reference. And theoretically, is he doing it with a PS5 controller? I can't tell. Tell me your opinion there, or if that was an extra little Easter egg they're throwing in. But either way, very, very cool to have him. I mean, Sony's got to put the placement in their movie, and I'm all for it. They deserve it, man, because this movie is a revelation. They deserve to be able to put their stuff everywhere. I love the spot traveling all over the place, but in particular to the Lego world. Oh my gosh, so incredible. The Daily Bugle Lego set, they got to come out with this, right? And notice the newspaper article says Doc Ock still at large. That's, of course, a reference to Spider-Man 2. Just amazing. It's kind of funny, too, that they're reading the Lego news in the Lego world. So you got to love it. All right, fantastic. Also very interesting that the spot travels to Venom's universe. What a major Easter egg that they gave away in the trailers, but nonetheless. And he's got the Venom mint gum there. But what's also really cool is we learned that this is Chinatown, San Francisco, but Earth 688. Okay, so first that's fine. They assigned a number. Who cares, right? Oh, no. This is fascinating because I think that number looks suspiciously familiar. Now, if you're aware at all of the different wikis, there's the MCU wiki, which does the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I love that thing. I bring it up all the time. Fantastic wiki. There's also one for the Sony world and the Sony universes. And here's the funny thing. Anytime an Earth has not been given an official number, either in the handbook of the Marvel Universe or in a movie, etc., it gets what's called a TRN, temporary reality number. Basically, it's just a sequential number of all the Earths that don't yet have a number. So the fact that Sony used 688 is either a colossal coincidence or they're actually out looking at the wiki. They didn't understand it was a temporary reality number, but nonetheless, how cool is that? Go Wiki. You are now officially in a movie. The only problem is the reason it's a TRN 688 is there's already an Earth 688. It's a what-if universe, I believe. But anyway, so that's kind of a mess. I mean, I love that Sony looked at the wiki, but they probably shouldn't have used 688. But still, very, very cool that the wiki is now gone prime time. Also, you got to love the everything everywhere all at once bagel joke. Both movies are major multiverse movies, right? The Spider-Verse and Everything Always. But they also both deal with bagels. So how interesting that the bagel becomes a vital part of both movie series. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. All right, this is a theory. But I've been talking on the server with lots of folks, and we really think there might be some merit to this. So the Vulture's appearance in the beginning, what did that tell us? So we learn that this Vulture was pulled from his own universe, a parchment universe, obviously, from way in the past, obviously. And they have to capture him and take care of him. And Spider-Man 2099 and a team comes in to do so. But in the process, we learned that several villains, and we'll look at some more of them in a moment, several villains have been pulled from their own universes and stuck in other universes. Doesn't that sound familiar? I mean, might they actually be explaining this painfully terrible Morbius post-credit scene in that it made no sense at all that the No Way Home spell sent MCU's Vulture into the Morbius universe. That's not the way the spell worked. Well, what if the Vulture was correct that it has to do with Spider-Man? But it wasn't the Spider-Man, Tom Holland Spider-Man. It was Miles and the Collider and all the problems from the first Into the Spider-Verse movie that are now causing these villains to be shot into different worlds. Wild, huh? Now, it raises the question of maybe Vulture should be glitching. I don't know. So it maybe doesn't completely solve it. Or maybe there's a reason in this case he's not glitching. I don't know. But anyway, no clue if this is them trying to fix this terrible end credit scene. But I'm going to use it as headcanon for now. Love it. Love that. But I mentioned several villains, right? Okay, let's talk about some of the villains. This is awesome to have the PS4 Spider-Man looking at two of these, ancient video game villains. So, first of all, you have the Green Goblin there on the right from the old ancient Atari game. Notice, look at this, the 8-bit Green Goblin there on the right, and then how it exactly is perfect with the Green Goblin there on the left. But maybe even better is I love this one, Video Man from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Epic. Absolutely epic. So it's hilarious that the PS4 Spider-Man is going, wow, these graphics were terrible. And they were. They're still fun games, and it was still fun to watch Video Man on Spider-Man's Amazing Friends. But yeah, terrible, terrible graphics. All right, so also we see Miles pass by several classic Sinister Six villains that have been captured. Obviously Doc Ock, you can see Electro, Green Goblin. But one of the coolest things is the audio for Doc Ock, is the audio from No Way Home, when Doc Ock makes his famous appearance and says, "Hello, Peter." Very cool. So no, this Doc Ock doesn't appear in the movie, obviously, but his audio does. Amazing Easter egg. Love it. We also see some crazy ones like Moose Stereo from Peter Porker's world. But the best Easter egg had to be Donald Glover showing up as the Prowler. That was so cool. Besides the fact that he's live action in the animated universe, that was really cool to see. Who thought we would ever see that, right? Although we did also see the Spot showing up in Venom's, as we saw earlier. But nonetheless, to have live action along with the animated was incredible. But there's far more than that. The question is then, is this the same character that Donald Glover played in Spider-Man Homecoming when he was clearly playing Uncle Aaron? He mentions his nephew at one point. In a deleted scene, he even calls him Miles. So is this the same one? Now, I don't think so, because I don't think we would have been unaware that he turned into the Prowler in the MCU if it had already happened. I think this is an Easter egg saying it very well may happen. And so it does make you wonder, will we finally get Miles in the MCU? Will they finally pay off this Easter egg? I don't know, but it could be paving the way for that to happen, because I would love to, well, they're saying there is going to be a live action Miles. That's a foregone conclusion. The question is where, which universe? I really hope that was an Easter egg for this guy here turning into officially the Prowler, and of course Miles appearing in the MCU with maybe in Spider-Man 4, right? We'll see. But another piece to the Easter egg is that is Donald Glover, many years younger, in Community, the show Community. And he is wearing, obviously, a Spider-Man PJs. This appearance led to people going, Black Spider-Man? Come on, what's that all about? Which led to the creation of Miles Morales in the comics, because people were like, hey, you're saying we can't have a Black Spider-Man? Guess what? We do now. So there. So Donald Glover wearing the Spider-Man PJs led to the creation of Miles Morales. And then in the first movie, there was that scene, that exact scene on the TV, right, in the Into the Spider-Verse movie. So you've kind of got Donald Glover coming full circle here, right? He puts on PJs in a TV show. that leads to the creation of Miles Morales. The TV show is shown in the first movie, and then Donald Glover finally shows up at the Prowler in the second movie. Wow, there's so many layers to this. Just really, really cool. Okay, now let's talk about some of the differences between the way the multiverse works in the Spider-Verse movies versus the MCU, because we can't ignore these. So obviously, if you're in the wrong universe in the Spider-Verse movies, you glitch. We saw it with the Spider. We've seen it with other characters. Unless they're wearing those wristbands, you glitch. However, in the MCU, if you go to a different universe, like we saw in Multiverse of Madness, you don't glitch. On the other hand, you do confuse and destabilize reality, which can lead to an incursion. Well, that's very different, right? That is very, very different. So set that aside for a minute. I'll come back to it. Let's talk about another difference, though. In the Sonyverse, Spider-Verse, it seems like you do not change your physical form to that of the reality you go to. We see Spot showing up in live action with Mrs. Chen. We see that the different characters still retain their cartoon-like forms. Noir stays in black and white. Peter Porker still looks like a cartoon. We obviously saw Donald Glover earlier, was live action in animated. So it seems like you keep your physical form, the physics of your physical form, when you go to different universes. Now, there is the Easter egg from Into the Spider-Verse, which is the end credit scene, which looks like Spider-Man 2099 turns into the same type of cartoon form as the 60s Spider-Man. But this was kind of a joke. We can't really take that to be officially like they were trying to say that. They just threw it together. But maybe there's certain times when you do turn into the form of the cartoon universe you're in. Nonetheless, it seems like you keep your physical form in the Spider-Verse. That is not what happens in the MCU, because we see Doctor Strange and America going through the different universes, and they change physically to those universes' way of representing them. So he turns into cubes. He turns into cartoons. He turns into the noir. He turns black and white. He turns into paint, right? And I did another video on that, going into more detail on that. But clearly in the MCU, you change your physical form to the universe you go to. Well, man, these seem irreconcilable differences, right? But I think a pretty simple answer is the method you use to travel the multiverse is what causes the differences. So for whatever reason, if you use America Chavez's portals, you change your physics to the universe, but you also don't glitch, but you can cause incursions. On the other hand, if you've got the bracelet on in the Spider-Verse, then you don't glitch, otherwise you glitch, and you don't change your form to that of the universe you go to. Now, do I wish that Sony and the MCU were working together on their rules? Yes, I do. But keep in mind that Into the Spider-Verse came out in 2018, well before there was any multiverse in the MCU. So, it is what it is. Really, you could blame the MCU for not using the rules from Spider-Verse, I guess, but then they didn't want their characters glitching, so what do you do, right? But I do think it's the method of travel that changes things. Hopefully this all gets reeled together into a set of rules that are the same, but until then, this is what we got. That's my theory. Let me know what you think if you disagree. Okay, the other thing we got to talk about is these numbering systems for the universes. So obviously, Twitter went crazy when they released the trailer where Miguel mentions not only Doctor Strange and the Little Nerd a la Tom Holland and No Way Home, that was big enough, but he calls the MCU Earth 1999-99. Wow, that's fascinating, because obviously that is not what Kevin Feige calls the MCU. We've been seeing more and more times that it's referred to as 616. Going all the way back to Thor the Dark World, there was the little Easter egg on the chalkboard with Dr. Selvig. Of course, in Far From Home, Mysterio, who is a liar, we know that, but nonetheless says that the MCU is Dimension 616. And by the way, Sony made this movie. Let me make that clear. It's an MCU movie, but Sony made it. So Sony was actually the first, besides Thor the Dark World, to call the MCU 616. I just want to point that out. But nonetheless, then in Loki, we see Earth 616 on the movie reel of Loki's life. We see 616 on the TemPad for Loki's reality. And of course, in Multiverse of Madness, Christine Palmer has numbered the MCU 616. So, what do we do with this? Now, I know that a lot of people just don't like the fact that Feige used 616. Feige's explanation, for what it's worth, is that the MCU is the real life adaptation, with changes, obviously, but of the comic universe. So they can both have the same number system because they are not related to each other at all. The comics are not part of the multiverse at all. So I think he used 616 to really say, this is the comics come to life. Okay, I mean, some people don't like that. They like the 1999-99 because there is a, and I will be really crystal clear, obscure reference in one edition of the, or an original edition of the Marvel Handbook of the universe that lists the MCU as 1999-99. And I did a longer video on that. You can check out that video. But bottom line is that was somebody else assigning the MCU a numbering system. Feige says it's 616. But hey, this is even more confusing, and I don't know why this doesn't bother more people. In Into the Spider-Verse, they assigned Peter B. Parker Earth 616, as you can see in the upper left, and Miles Earth 1610. So Sony first, in Far From Home, said the MCU is 616, and now they're saying that Peter B. Parker's is 616. Obviously, Peter B. Parker is an animated adaptation of the comics, but he's not the comics Peter Parker. Likewise, Miles is an animated adaptation of 1610, but he's not 1610, but I've never heard anyone complain about this. So it's just weird that it triggers so many folks that the MCU is called 616, but Into the Spider-Verse said that this is 616. I just don't have that big of an issue with it, but I do understand and respect those that do. I'm just pointing out Into the Spider-Verse made it really confusing. But Across the Spider-Verse makes it even more confusing, right? Because Into the Spider-Verse is saying, hey, Earth 616 and Earth 1610, right? But then in Across the Spider-Verse, they added an A. So, because Tarantula, who is a character from the Ultimates universe, 1610 in the comics, they now label him as 1610A. Well, that came from nowhere. Yet at the same time, they list Spider-Side as Earth 616. So, what is happening here? Why did one of them get an A and the other one didn't? I don't know. And later in the movie, we still see that Miles' universe is 1610 on one of the pads that lets them go to the different universes. So are we now adding the letter A or are we not? And then also, I can't find a screenshot of this, unfortunately, but I do trust all the people that have said that they show Peter B. Parker's world as now being 616B. It's supposedly on one of Gwen's wristbands. Oi. So that's why the fandom has already updated it to B. And notice it's kind of funny down in the lower right there, aliases are E616 because it originally was called 616 and now it's 616B. I don't know what's going on. I guess I just don't have a big issue with Miguel having a different numbering system than Christine Palmer. So Miguel calling the MCU 1999-99, that doesn't bother me, and Christine calling it 616. More what bothers me is we're just throwing letters on randomly now. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments all this means. For now, I'm calling the MCU 616 because that's what Feige calls it, but I totally respect anyone that wants to call it 1999-99. All right, so much for that, right? Now, let's talk about all the Spider-Man that appeared in the movie. So obviously Peter B. Parker came back. He was fantastic. He doesn't really have a comic book reference, so I didn't really show a comic book example of him. For the rest of them, though, I'm going to show their comic book equivalents. I mean, you could argue Peter B. Parker is the Spider-Man, I guess. But Mayday Parker, so cute, so amazing. Cannot wait to see more of her in the next movie. And then in the comics, she's more aged up. But nonetheless, fantastic character. Stole every moment she was in. Spider-Punk was a great new character. His animation style, I can't imagine how much time it took him to put it together. My goodness gracious. Was incredible. Great character. And you could argue one of the true heroes of the movie. If not for him, Gwen would not have had the device to put together that team to unify everyone. So, yeah, Spider-Punk rocks. Spider-Man India was incredible. I loved him. Again, can't wait to see more of him in the next movie. Jessica Drew was interesting. I enjoyed her character. I didn't feel like they gave her enough to really get an idea who she is and what she's about. I mean, she clearly was drinking the Kool-Aid and trusted everything Miguel said. But yeah, she sure kicked butt. I'll tell you that. I loved that. And yeah, she is the adaptation of the Jessica Drew from the comics. Although I would argue she might even be an homage to the Spidey Super Stories, which had the first black African American Spider Woman, which was really cool. So unclear exactly where they got the idea directly for her, but nonetheless, great character. I'll be glad to see her again and how they handle her in the next movie. Scarlet Spider was fascinating, just really, really moody and edgy. I hope he returns as well. It'll be interesting to see what they do with him, but he was a lot of fun. Did not expect him to be portrayed quite the way he was in the movie, but really enjoyed him. Spider Bite was great. We're going to get a lot more of her in the next movie. And it was really cool to see her, her on her own world and what she looked like with her VR headset on. That was a lot of fun. So, just so much they can do with her character. Then we'll get into some of the animals. I'm going to cover the animals, and then we'll go to all the different variants. So we got Willow the Spider Horse and Gunslinger. Gotta love that. Spider Cat was epic. You can see him in the Spider Cat in the comics over there. Looks pretty upset. I loved the fact that he basically hacked up web hairballs. That's awesome. I mean, yeah, that basically poor Miles, his face. That's not just webbing. That is a hairball webbing. Blech. We had Spider Rex made a great appearance. We had the Wolf Spider-Man was there. The Spider Monkey was there. So many of the different animals. Which, by the way, tell me how on earth their canon events worked. I guess Spider Monkey had a Spider Uncle Ben that died and a Captain Monkey that died. I don't know. Anyway, that's why I'm just saying I think Miguel is wrong about the canon events. I think we're going to find that out in the next movie. But nonetheless. All right, so then we have maybe what is the Raimi Spider-Man? Seems like a little bit, maybe. Or it could be the No Way Home suit. It's hard to tell by the blue there. We definitely have what seems like at least a rendition of the Far From Home suit. This was I love this. We have an homage to Homecoming. Notice how that Spider-Man is sitting exactly as Tom Holland was there for Spider-Man Homecoming. I love this homage to No Way Home and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. That's pretty cool. Then we have the Mark Armors with the Spider-Man Mark Armor number 1 from Web of Spider-Man 100, Mark Armor number 2, and Mark Armor number 3. So that was really cool. The original animated Spider-Man showed up. I love him. So happy he got a brief appearance. Spectacular Spider-Man I mentioned earlier. He gets a good appearance. And again, I cannot believe he would be drinking the Kool-Aid of all the Spider-Men. I really want to see them all turn on Miguel in the end. Not evil, fight him. I just mean basically say, dude, you're wrong, and we're going to control our own destiny. Cyborg Spider-Man, very cool. Love that. The PS4 Spider-Man. And then I still am not 100% sure if this is either the Miles Morales or the Ultimate Ben Reilly. I'm kind of leaning towards the Ultimate Ben Reilly, talking to him there. But nonetheless, one of the two. But clearly the PS4 Spider-Man. Anna Corazon, Spider-Girl makes an appearance. Max Bourne, that was kind of fun. Boy, what a funny appearance with Miles hanging out on his back. Chibi Spider-Man, I've never even heard of this one before, but it's out there, so there you go. Clearly, that's him. Future Foundation Spider-Man sure seems like that's implying that's the same one when he was with the Fantastic Four. The Last Stand sure looks like the Last Stand Spider-Man. It's PS4 Spider-Cop, obviously. Sun Spider, Charlotte Weber, very cool. Lady Spider, Steampunk Aunt May, that was cool. Spinneret, Mary Jane and Annie. I hope they get to do more. They just kind of stroll by and don't do much, but really cool characters. I love the costumes, too. I like the white. Spider-Girl, Mayday Parker. Sure seems like that's her. Tell me your opinion. Spider-Man from the Mangaverse, of course. He was great. Got a nice little appearance. The Bombastic Bagman, he's been talked about a ton, but obviously that's when Peter Parker had to get rid of the costume because he had the alien symbiote on him, and then he would have been in his underwear otherwise. And so he gets a bag on his head in the Fantastic Four outfit. Very, very cool. The Doppelganger Spider-Man appears very briefly, but he's awesome. Spider-Man Unlimited, very clearly him. PS4, Peter Parker, Scarlet Spider number 2, maybe. I mean, it sure looks like it. If it's not, I'll be surprised. They never adapt them directly 100%, but sure looks like it. This one might be Jessica Drew's Spider-Woman, but a Caucasian version of her. So hard to tell. I mean, it's definitely not the Jessica Drew we saw primarily in the movie, because she's more. Well, I guess it could be. I don't know. Tell me your opinion if that's the same one, or if they've got both a Caucasian and an African American version of the character. This is definitely the Flash Thompson from a What If, and he's got the Letterman jacket on there. The Spider-Mobile, which was epic from the comics. Superior Spider-Man seems like it when Doc Ock was in control of his body. Maybe. I don't know. Kind of hard to tell. Tell me what you think. Definitely Spider-Man Earth X. No doubt about that. The Dapper Spider-Man. I mean, some of these weren't even real, like from the comics Spider-Man. They were real life. I mean, this dude, that's a meme, right? But it's great that he makes an appearance. A PS1 Spider-Man, I think. Tell me what you think. I mean, it's not the right build, but we've seen many times they've changed their physical build. But it sure looks like animated wise. Spider-Man UK, probably. I mean, it's not exactly the costume, although we do know that there's definitely a Spider UK, but that doesn't look anything like the same costume. So I'm not sure. Let me know your thoughts on that. But clearly, this one is Spider UK. This one, I'm really hoping that was meant to be from the comic strip. I read those forever. In fact, I pulled one from the internet with the Prowler appropriately, right? But yeah, it looks like the black and white newspaper Spider-Man. Awesome. Written by Stan Lee and drawn by John Romita. Way cool. Spider Side. We know that's Spider Side because, they tell us it's Spider Side. So, okay, great. That sure looks like Julia Carpenter's Spider-Woman. I don't know that she's much in the light in other scenes to tell for sure, but it seems like it. This might be the ultimate Spider-Woman. Let me know your thoughts on that. Samurai Spider-Man, that's pretty clear. Really cool. Bruce Banner Spider-Man. Looks like it, for the most part. Electro-proof suit, maybe, right? Maybe. Or maybe this one. One of the two. They sure both seem like an attempt at it. The anti-Kingpin suit. Yeah, I would buy that. Now, this one's interesting. I wish it was the six-armed Spider-Man. We later learn it's not, but I love the six-armed Spider-Man. Any excuse for him to be in there would be great. But we're pretty sure it's the Tarantula, well, because they later say the Tarantula appears. So I'm assuming that that's the Tarantula in this scene, since it's identified later as such. So, all right, cool. This could be Flipside, maybe. Not really, but maybe. Could be the Mary Jane Iron Spider, potentially. Could be the Iron Spider suit here. It's just some of the basic color scheme. This might be the Iron Spider red suit. In fact, one of the two. I would say one of the two is. Certainly the one on the left looks like that could be the Iron Spider red suit. The one on the right, kinda, maybe not. This one looks like an homage to the black suited Spider-Man. It's not the exact same spider design, but otherwise looks like it could be. Or it could be Spider-Man Velocity. But again, it's just close but not exact. And then this one could be Spider-Man Velocity. That's possible too. This is definitely the Aaron Aikman armored Spider-Man. It sure looks like it at least. Now, I don't think this is Webman necessarily, which notice it's just a reverse of the Spider-Man colors, but I just like Webman. So it's an excuse to bring up Webman, but also it's possible that's where they were trying to go with it. This might be Mayhem. I mean, just because it's blue doesn't mean it's Mayhem, but it could be. Could also be the Fantastic Spider-Man, but that seems really unlikely because the head would be black in that case. This could be the PS4 Antioch suit. This could also be the PS4 Antioch suit. This might be the Negative Spider-Man, or an homage to the Negative Spider-Man. This could be the Negative Spider-Man as well, but doesn't really look like it. This could be Spider-Girl. It's not exactly the same. But it doesn't look like she's wearing much. Which that's got to be the worst outfit ever, right? Could there be any worse costume? I mean, how does that even work? How does that even stay on? And plus, it's just gaudy. Oh well. Anyway, and I've heard people say it might even be the Undies Spider-Man. Even if it's not, I think it's hilarious. There's an Undies Spider-Man, so it's worth bringing that up. I mean, what on earth? The one on the left might be the Fear Itself Spider-Man. That's possible. This one might be the Canadian Spider-Man. Hard to tell. And then this one, I think it'd be cool if that was the AIM Brainwashed Spider Mechanic. Or maybe this one. Hard to say. So there you go. That's a bunch of Spider-Man. Let me know if I missed any. Let me know if you think I misidentified any. There are just so many. But that was my attempt. I identified them, a lot of them in a previous video, and as well as added some more new ones. So now, all we can do is wait for March 29th of 2024 to be continued. And for now, we glitch out, right? What other way to end? Great movie. Awesome movie. If there's any Easter eggs I missed, let me know in the comments, but thanks for watching the video. And as always, we do have a Discord server. Here we are talking about Easter eggs from the movie. A lot of discussion. We'd love to have you join. I will put a pinned comment with a link to the Discord server. It's also in the description for the channel. And if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we'll all continue to enjoy the ever-growing, ever-changing Marvel Cinematic Universe.